Wildfire challenges us somewhere every day. Our departments and crews are responding to more fires with greater complexity, our communities are experiencing larger and more destructive fires, and associated losses continue to rise. In this podcast, we'll explore all of this with the people who are experiencing wildfires firsthand. We'll talk about leadership and technology on the front lines, hear stories about that which responders are experiencing on the ground. We'll talk to the people in our communities that are creating innovative solutions, and we'll expose heroes doing great things before, during, and after these fires. We welcome you to Wildfire Chronicles, Heroism Beyond the Flames.
We're here with Rich Cowger, who is the fire chief in Columbus, Montana, among other things.
Mm-hmm.
How you doing, Rich?
Good. Busy.
Are you busy?
I'm busy, yeah.
Well, let's get right into the busyness, man. But let's first talk about how'd you end up fire chief in Montana? What's your history?
Cool. I'll give you the short version of it. I actually just got interested. I actually, in my secular work, worked for a guy who's the assistant fire chief in a different community. And so that kind of piqued my interest. And of course, as a kid, some of my friends, their dads were in the volunteer fire service. So that piqued my interest. And I lived in a real small rural community for a while that just like, I was watching an emergency go on across the street, and I sat there and kind of watched them. I'm like, well, that's pretty cool. And then working for a guy who's the assistant chief of the fire department, it kind of piqued my interest. So I joined up with that little organization, went away from it for a little while, then came back and settled in Columbus and saw the fire station, saw some trucks sitting outside, went down and asked them if they need help. And that was 30 years ago.
You were hooked.
I was hooked. And I've been the fire chief there for 20 years now.
Wow, 20 years
over
fire
20
chief.
years, yeah.
You were probably not gray at all.
I was 27 and no gray whatsoever.
Yeah. Well, that's a long time to be chief.
Transitioned from the volunteer and in the duration, then transitioned to a combination system, became the first paid employee. And now we're 9 paid folks, about 45 volunteers, kind of stuff.
That's pretty excellent, man. So you started as a volunteer, you wanted to transition through combination, and now you're a paid career fire chief, doing some great stuff. Rich, you're involved. You've been, in my view and my estimates, an innovator in the larger fire management world. We were talking to Mark Novak a little while, who was saying that big fires have followed him, but to some degree, you've followed big fires for quite some time, and you've done a couple things that are innovative, which I would love to hear about. One is you're involved in the geographic area coordination, which for a local government person is pretty rare. In other words, you've got this view on all the government and even non-governmental resources that are being moved around in your neck of the woods to manage large fires. And again, there aren't many local government folks who are doing that. So you're innovative in that. But you're also one of the nation's first complex incident managers. And this new thing, for those who don't know, in the wildland world, type 1 and type 2 teams have sort of been merged into this thing called complex incident management. And you and your team were really early adopters. Tell us about that experience in either one of those realms, man, or both.
So I guess would start off with, I think my first campaign fire was in 1996, actually between us and Red Lodge, and, just kind of got hooked on it. And being a rural community, we do a lot of wildland fire. And so, I kind of got my interest peaked on that, and I went through the systems, and I think for a while in the state of Montana, we laid the claim to having we use teams more in our district than a lot of other places across the state, jokingly, but we did. And so I just got familiar with the teams, familiar with people that were running in them. And then through the progression of things, I became the president of the State Chiefs Association. And as you mentioned, in our geographic area in the Northern Rockies, we're unique in that local government has a seat at the table when it comes to policy making decisions within that realm. Done way before my time. I think we chartered that in the late 80s, I think is the time frames on that. And that was due to some very smart people looking at it and going, by statute, local government has a responsibility. Well, back up by statute, Montana DNRC has a responsibility for wildfire protection across the state on both public and private lands, so not excluding the federal grounds. But they have a cooperative program then with the local government across the state to help them fulfill that mission. And so that was one of the reasons then that we're chartered members of that organization. So it's not only ourselves, but an organization called the County Fire Wardens, along with sheriffs and peace officers, because they have the evacuation authorities and all of that kind of stuff. So after becoming president of the State Chiefs Association, then we have had a member assigned to that seat. And eventually now, currently I'm the chair of the Northern Rockies Coordinating Group. So it does get you in a position to where you can see the inner workings of all of that, both good and bad. And then, Northern Rockies as a whole kind of embrace the CIAM movement probably sooner than others, even though we complained about it, because
it's a change.
Because the two things firefighters don't like are change in the way they are. But as a geographic area, we embraced it. So all of our teams went to CIM. And then last year, this season, I inherited a team by default. And so I am now one of the incident commanders of the CIM.
CIM, Complex Incident Management. So you just finished a deployment. Was it Washington?
Northeast Washington.
How did that go?
It was interesting. I thought maybe that they just sent us there because that was going to challenge me to see if I could make it through my first fire. And it was a challenging incident. I think we had 2 fires, which by comparison, some of the other teams had a lot more than that. But for us, it would have been melding the new team together, transitioning a new IC and deputy IC, and having some folks. Because when we moved to CIM, we actually dropped the number of teams. So we're integrating some new people into that. And so we had factors such as resource shortage, like you always have on a busy season, navigating the local politics and concerns and issues, as well as having some incidents on the incident, kind of stuff. And then,
a little bit of everything.
Having a fire that goes 53,000 acres in 2 days, kind of stuff. And all
53,000 acres in 2 days.
Yeah.
Wow. So to give this a perspective, and I mean, this is so interesting, especially for those of us who don't do much of this complex incident or any incident management. So a call goes out. The national system realizes there's a need. They call your team, which is 50 people, 100 people, somewhere in that range?
Yeah, we rolled out with about 80.
So somewhere between 50 and 100 people that you at least know each other's names, and everybody's got some sort of role. You go to this location near some community in the middle of nowhere, and you create this work site, fire camp, an incident command post where people are planning, strategizing, working, setting out objectives, but they're also eating, sleeping, cleaning. How many people were in this little village?
Well, by the time, so we came in and took over the incident from a Type 3 team. And I think total resources, ground resources at the time was about 150 people with the team. So you're talking roughly 200 people. And then at the height of our campaign, we were just shy. Well, all total, we're probably just a little over 800 people.
A little over 800.
Process, yeah.
And what is the biggest incident base camp or team that you've managed, helped manage?
Well, a couple years ago as a trainee, we did a fire over in Grants Pass, Oregon. I think that when we got there was 1,200 people on the incident.
Yeah. So it went from 0 people working in that space to 1,200. You got to figure out a way how to not only make them...
And you're the mayor.
Yeah. Not only make them effective organizationally and so that they're all accomplishing tasks together, but make sure all their basic needs are met.
Yeah. And like you said, I mean, the incident's the incident. We know fire's going to burn. We know it goes uphill faster and it goes downhill. It goes with the wind. All of those things are the easy part, right?
Right.
The other part of it is then you go into a system that's already stressed, because I think at one point, and it's probably still close to being that, I think the stats said that we had over half of the nation's firefighting force in the Pacific Northwest. And so you're competing for resources and all of that kind of stuff. So that system's already stressed, which in turn then from your operation standpoint stresses your ops guys, because they're trying to get something done and a strategy and plans put on the ground, and they can't quite get there because they don't have enough resources. So they get stressed, which then stresses out, you got the logistical support behind that. You got, the finance people doing what finance people do, which are trying to be conservative, and then, planning people trying to do all of that. And then, like you said, and then some of them are brand new into the system and they're all just going, what in the world is going on here?
Yeah.
Which I've never personally been on a fire scene in the wildland in any capacity. And I think this could warrant its own episode, but I think I would love to take a quick little high level of what is a day in the life of when this recent incident or another context, you wake up, whether from the firefighter perspective or incident commander perspective. I'd love to kind of hear both of like you wake up and then what?
And then what?
You talk about this village you're in, like you can paint a little context.
Oh,
here.
yeah, you're talking a whole longer episode.
Yeah, the spark note.
No, so the reality is, I mean, so you get up, you're going to have a briefing at a certain point in time that sets the pace for everybody. That's what their plans and their goals and objectives are for the day. You know, from a firefighter standpoint, they're going to be prepped and ready to go before that briefing. Hopefully, get the briefing and go out on the line and do whatever they're tasked for that day. It's hand line construction, dozer lines, structure protection, whatever the case may be. From, you know, and I say this jokingly, the boots on the ground's where the work's getting done, right? I mean, we all know that. They're the ones that are containing the fire. But they got the easy job because they know what their task at hand is. From an incident commander standpoint, you still have to oversee that. And plus you deal with all the nuances that come up throughout the day. So any of those political, in our particular case, we were dealing with tribal politics and the politics between tribe and BIA and the politics between the tribe BIA and state DNR. And so what are all those local concerns and all those side political fires that you have to deal with that make sure that it doesn't impact the guys and gals out on the ground? And then whatever internal stress might be coming, but between the teams themselves, because put 80 people in a room together or even in an area together for 14 days plus. We always start off our kind of campaign with knowing, it's hard enough for people that know each other and love each other and families to get along for 14 days straight. It's a dysfunctional family. At some point, somebody's going to irritate somebody during that 14-day process, guaranteed. And it's just what time of the day and which day that they're actually going to do it is the unknown. So your day starts probably 5 o'clock in the morning and probably doesn't end most of the time till 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. Just navigating all those fields.
And when you're looking at the system as a whole, somebody else picks up the pieces at 10 p.m. and is planning for your next day. So although you started with everybody waking up, the reality is you and members of your team were spending that night planning for what those folks are going to do.
Some of those planning folks are working till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning to make sure everything's put together so you're ready to go 6 o'clock the next morning.
Yeah, it's quite a machine.
Yeah, built from nothing.
Right? Built from nothing. Yeah. Like we said, there was nobody there before you're a couple hundred and, up to 1,200. And sometimes some of these bigger complex fires are 5,000 and more folks by the end of it. So it's a huge undertaking. Well, let's take some of this is sort of response oriented stuff, right? Well, let's take some of that and move it back to your community. Not everything's response. What are the other things that you guys are doing in that space that's sort of making a difference in your community to hit that goal, whether it's reducing risk, keeping people safe, whatever it is?
So specifically to our community in Columbus, so we adopted mitigation principles 15 years ago. We see in our community transition from an area that never was impacted by fire, and through the 2000s, we've seen a lot of fire. In like 2006, we've seen one of Montana's largest fires in the south end of our county, over 210,000 acres, and I think it burned over a month and a half, And so after seeing that, we realized we got to do something different, and that being reactive all the time isn't the way to go. We've got to be proactive in trying to get ahead of some of this stuff. So working through the IFC and the Ready, Set, Go program, we were one of the pilot communities to do.
Pilot everything.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah. So we did that, and continue that to this day, where we try and get the crews out, and we host a crew, put on severity crews in the summertime that go out and educate folks, do the mitigation work around their homes, and then they're available to us as the severity increases. Then we've got supplemental crews available to us, and so we've adopted that a long time ago that we got to be on the front end of this thing to try and react to the back end in a better way than just totally being on the defense.
Yeah.
So we go try
proactive. Yeah. And you're using the very same people who are also going to react. So you're hiring people as responders, but they're also in the community educating, preventing, mitigating.
And that does a couple of things for us, really, because now the people in the community are seeing our folks out there. They're walking the ground that they're potentially going to have to protect and fight a fire on. So they're familiar with the ground, they're familiar with the people. There's a trusting relationship that's built between them. So, and on a lot of our fuels programs, it's grant money driven. Like for us, there's really not a profit in it for us. We pay for the guys. The profit for us comes in that public support of now they have people that they know on both sides. Our folks know the residents that they're going to respond to, and the residents know the people that are going to come do work. And it's pretty
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is great. You called it profit. Others might say it's like equity.
Yeah.
And you got
Yeah.
this relationship that's built. So ultimately, you can all achieve the same goal. Community safety, whatever that might be.
Yeah.
And Kevin and I all day today, we've been talking about this collaborative environment. We talked about it in the space of the unhoused population, what a fire chief can do to lead a collaboration around an issue. Your fire camps, your incident management team is another form of collaboration, and it sounds like your risk reduction is exactly the same thing, right? That's sort of like the key to your leadership.
And that collaboration for like our team in particular, I mean, it kind of goes with our geographic area where we've got local, state, and federal all sitting at the same table together making those decisions. Our team is really made up of almost a third, and a third. So a lot of our team members are local firefighters, local government folks. Planning section chiefs are local guys. A couple of my ops guys are local government, and so I think that's one of the cool things about, because not all teams are created equal, even though they're all CIM, right? So supposedly their capacity is the same. But our team has that ability to where we can sit there, even our liaison officers. We got feds, locals, and state liaison officers that can, when you go into an incident, really have the ability to maneuver those avenues and channels that they know because of what they experience in their real life, right? So I think that's one of the cool things about the team that we've put together is that we've got the ability to navigate. If it's a federal fire, we got the folks that can talk the federal language. If it's a state fire, we've got the folks that can talk the state language, and that's not every team out there has that.
Back to empathy, man.
Yeah, empathy and collaboration.
Other people's, yep, that's great.
Yeah.
I got my last question, Kevin. Do you have something you want to add?
It seems like everything you talked about today was in some capacity managing people. And it was all kind of dealing with the human element. And we talked earlier about just the importance of empathy and understanding where different stakeholders are coming from. You've kind of hit on some of this already, but any sort of tips and tricks that you would provide to other fire service members or stakeholders in the fire community about how to manage people that may seem like they're kind of going after different things, but really they all have the same end goal in mind. And I mean, you talked about how you kind of become the default mayor of this town of 1,000 different people, 1,000
growing daily.
Yeah. But just any sort of high level insights or experiences that you could provide about how to best manage people in these kind of situations.
So we spent, one of our team philosophies is making sure, and we talk about this at briefings, we talk about it when our team gets together and the CNG and everything is making sure that when we're done with the incident, the relationships that we've built are better than when we came in. Because the reality is you can put a fire out, or you may not be able to put a fire out. And that's not what people are going to remember. But people are going to remember how well the team blended, how well the team listened to the community, the needs and all that kind of stuff. I mean, the fire will be, it's 50,000 acres and it'll grow back. But they'll remember if that team treated them badly or not. And so it's the same thing. And so we emphasize that a lot, is that when we go in there, we have the same goal, mission, vision, and values, right? That we're all going for the same direction, for the same common goal, mission and vision and values. We don't require everybody to like each other, but they have to treat each other with respect and dignity, and keep in mind what our mission, vision, and values are of that thing. And then at the end of the day, if you want to send each other a Christmas card, go for it. If you don't, that's your personal choice kind of stuff. But why we're here focused on this kind of thing is it's still our mission, vision, and values of what that is. And so just to make sure, in this last incident was kind of a unique thing. And I guess it's probably not unique, when you look at it, but one of the things that was stressed to us was the cultural values of the ground that we were on, as a reservation and that kind of stuff and everything. And we reiterated to folks to just keep in mind what's sensitive to these folks. And that could be somebody in the fire camp. It could be somebody on the line. It could be your customer. Just remember what's sensitive to them and treat it with respect. At the end of the day, hopefully it all goes well.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, man. Here's the Goocher. You've done all kinds of great stuff in Columbus and Montana, Northwest in the nation. You're working with Western Fire Chiefs. We're in VCOS. You've got an awesome family. What are you most proud of, man?
That's tough. There's a lot of stuff out there. At the end of the day, I think the thing I'm most proud of is a couple years ago, we had the Robertson Draw Fire over in Red Lodge. It was on Father's Day, and got a picture of me and my kid, who's a wildland firefighter. Well, he's a firefighter full-time for us. Tyler Ray, who's out of the Red Lodge Fire Department, his kid, following in footsteps. At the end of the day, I think that's pretty cool.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Rich Cowger, Fire Chief, Columbus, Montana. Thanks for
You
doing
bet. Thank you. Appreciate it. You betcha. Yeah.
We are certain you enjoyed hearing from those who are doing great things in the wildland-urban interface, and hope maybe you even learned a little something new. If you have a story to share, please reach out to us. In the meantime, we thank you for listening to Wildfire Chronicles: Heroism Beyond the Flames. We'll see you next time.